Who was your contemporaries? Who you started with in Boston?
I don't know if there's guys that anyone knows, really.
Yeah.
Tom Dustin, Alvin David, Mike Whitman, they're kind of still there.
Was Patrice still in Boston when you
Patrice was
started?
gone, Bobby was gone, Dane was gone. I started in 2000, but all those guys were there. It's still all the same. Like, we all have the exact same starting out stories, but I started 15 years after you guys. It's so funny. It's like a lot of the same rooms, the same guys, Donovan, Tony V. And then I met Nick in Boston, but opening for him at the Comedy Connection. I went on the road with him for years. And it was the same thing. We had all the same stories. It's really fascinating.
How that place stayed the same long enough to foster. I mean, those guys sort of created all the comics that came from there.
Sure, Burr,
yes,
Patrice,
who to me is one of the greatest of all time.
Sure.
For sure.
Patrice is by far, he owns a part of comedy that nobody else can touch.
Yes.
There's other people that have like categories where they're number 1 or 2 in the bench, but he's the only fucking guy who ever did that. And he was just about to get even better, and he was already just, he would now be just everything.
Oh my God, he would
Everything.
be, if Patrice had a podcast, it'd be the greatest podcast ever.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
He would have been the king.
He's missed.
But those guys, Lenny, Gavin, even crazy guys like Teddy Bergeron, all these guys were just so good, and they had this Godfather. They're like a big giant multi-headed Godfather.
Yeah.
And Dane and Robert came up after we did, and Joe, and Nick came up under those guys, learned from those guys, looked up to Lenny Clark was his idol. There's nobody more important in the world to Nick than Lenny Clark, and Lenny's still there. And not everybody's meant to be a TV star in this thing, but the way they've looked after that local scene, like a folk scene, it's like if Dylan and Joni Mitchell and all those people stayed in the clubs in the Village and just kept being an example. They're like teachers.
Yeah.
That's really rare. It's a rare thing. We're really lucky to have that.
Well, it's a rare thing, and that place celebrates comedy. Like Boston comedy is like, it's very important to people that live in Boston.
Yeah.